Daniel with Tiny Rig here, and we're going to walk you guys through this Tundra we just wrapped up. We are an overland off-road shop located in Southern California. We're in Westminster, which is a neighboring city of Huntington Beach. Right now we're in Huntington Beach at a park, and we're going to walk you guys through this big build we just wrapped up. So customer approached us towards the end of last year to do kind of his dream build, and this is something he had planned for a long time, saved for a long time, and had a vision for it that he was hoping we could fulfill, and I think we did that. So yesterday we just wrapped up our shakedown run on it, took it out to a local trail and didn't thrash on it, but definitely ran it through its paces. I personally have a 3rd gen Tacoma with McNeil fiberglass like this has. I'll jump into that. Total Chaos suspension, so very similar truck, just smaller. And I would say that I have a very good sense of how these trucks drive and perform when built correctly. And so we pushed it a little bit yesterday. We did some fun hill climbs, tested out the lockers that we did, and overall the truck drove absolutely awesome. We've got a few tweaks we're gonna do. We wanted to knock out the video before we finalize the build, get it washed, detailed. But I'm gonna walk you guys through that. Now, I'll start with the fiberglass, something we will very likely never offer to do in-house again. We have a body shop next to us that does great paint work, and so we fit the glass, got it all dialed for both the camper, which is, we'll call it like semi-complex to do the fiberglass with the camper. But fiberglass work should be left for the professionals, and you know, our team did a great job, and we actually have a couple of employees who've worked in body shops, and one of our team members' dads also had done body work for about 40 years. So we had the resources to do it, but just extremely complex. Fitment on glass is a challenge, and that was something that I set expectations with the customer, having had my own truck with fiberglass as well. So we did some cool things to it, and I'm gonna start with the fiberglass and I guess the little details with that. So around this area up front, you're gonna find that on most fiberglass kits that there's a little bit of variation in terms of, and sometimes a lot of variation in terms of fit and finish. The glass can warp, it comes out of a mold, it's done by a human, it's not perfect. And so there's little things that over time I saw on my truck where the paint started to wear or crack a little bit earlier than ideal. And so what we did in those places is we added a Line-X coating. And so we did that around the headlight area. That's gonna help hopefully reduce the fatigue that's generated from, we'll call it just the misfitment or misshape of the glass around the headlights. Other things we did, we'll get some B-roll for you guys of it. The person who installed my glass used pretty standard size hardware. And so we did fender washers everywhere with rubber as well to help prevent the mounting locations from cracking. The inside of the glass is Line-X'd as well, really heavy coating. That helped a lot in terms of increasing the rigidity of it. So from a process standpoint, glass comes in from fiberglass manufacturer. You do some test fitting, you look to kind of see how things go. You find variations, you do a little cutting, you do a little trimming, you drill for mounting holes, and then you kind of do like that final fitment, and then you send it off to do the Line-X and the paint. So we did front and rear McNeil. Back here, we did some extra reinforcement brackets that we made in-house. We can get some B-roll of that later for them, Noah. But that's to make this more rigid. And my truck for a minute didn't have that, and every time someone would walk by my truck and kind of like lean on it, they'd fall a little bit, which was always sketchy. So that's very dialed. Camper on glass. So that's a question that I actually get asked pretty dang frequently. And one of the beauties with the Alu-Cab is that it isn't completely just resting on your fiberglass. Because of the rear fit kit and the front of how the camper mounts, you actually have more weight on the front of the bed and the rear of the bed resting on the fit kit. You do have a little bit here, but it's not super substantial. But what we did is we took the factory bedside and cut all of the, basically from here down off, And what that left is a metal structure for the glass to rest on. And so we did that with my truck. I've had glass on it now for 5+ years, maybe 6 actually, with this camper and another camper, and no issues. So, you know, very, very doable. I've absolutely thrashed my truck. The glasses hold up pretty well. It looks great. Although if you're trying to decide between, like, let's say a +2 long travel kit or a +3, and the difference is having to run glass or not, unless you're obsessed with the look of running fiberglass, keep your stock vendor size and roll with that, because this is a never-ending game of chasing the cracks and maintaining the paint. But I mean, we use them, we build them that way for a reason. So let's go back up front, Noah, and let's talk about what we did up front. So the truck came to us and it had a different front bumper. I believe it had a C4 front bumper for stock width. This truck, because it has the fiberglass, we needed to do a wider bumper. So we have a C4 hybrid front bumper, and you guys can see up here we have 4 LP6s and a set of SAE Squadron Rs. The R is because it's a round bezel, and that'll fit into a factory fog location. The customer already had these lights and wanted to reuse them. He has an S-Pod system, 6-switch, it's the simple one. And so we wired those up to his S-Pod. Winch he already had, we were able to move that over from the other bumper. And so kind of able to help a little bit budget-wise of reusing some of those lights. And it's a good look, and it's plenty of light output. We did eliminate the ditch lights. He had some LP4s up there, pretty excessive. There's a ton of light already with the 4 LP6s and those Squadrons up here. So he's dialed there. Engine bay, I'll show you guys that real quick. We did a little bit of work in there, did some wire cleanup, and upgraded his start battery. And then we also added the ARV twin compressor and plumbed his lockers. So we don't do lockers in-house. We actually will outsource that to a buddy. And we had them kind of install those lockers, and then we finished the plumbing. Over here, we did an X2 power battery. Really, really, really good battery. We also do full throttle batteries. In my opinion, this is the best battery you can get for under the hood of your car. You guys can see some Blue Sea marine fuses up there. The S-Pod was already installed over the fuse box. Had we done that ourselves, we would have not drilled through the fuse box. In our opinion, that's kind of a called a lazy way to do the install. It's also not safe, right? You start having water drip into that and you break the seal of the fuse box, you're gonna have some serious issues. So twin compressor mount over there, that's on an STHQ mount. We did a custom little bracket over there for the manifold and the air check for it. So this is all dialed up here. We've got, moving back, suspension wheels. So these wheels are, these are Methods. I'm not actually familiar with the offset. The customer had picked these up beforehand, and those are 37-inch KM3s. From a tire standpoint, that is probably my favorite tire I've ever run from a ride quality standpoint. From a performance standpoint as well, in terms of like stickiness and off-road performance. Longevity and tread life, not my favorite tire. If I was to say that, you know, I'm gonna put any tire I want on my truck and not worry about money, that's probably the tire I'd go with. Just softer compound, and I saw very poor tread wear. Both had some, we'll call it some waves in the tread as well. So just not my favorite from that standpoint, but up until that point, it's epic. Topic of brakes, there's nothing like a set of power brakes for an off-road truck, period. We've had customers that we've spoken to about brakes. They've gone out and bought other brake brands and end up coming back to us, test driving our vehicles and swapping. Number one, from a company and human standpoint, epic people behind the product, but also a brilliant engineer and then a brilliant sales team that is extremely dedicated to it. DeLon is the representative in the US, and his brother Clive is the engineer behind it, and they have so much passion for what they do. It's extremely reflective in the product. The support is epic. But this truck, Noah and I were driving yesterday. We were in stop and go traffic. We hit the trail, and it just freaking performs. It stops so well. So we have the big brake kit up front, and then we also have the rear brakes for this Tundra. And the truck is heavy and absolutely stops on the dime. And it's all proportioned well, so you have good pedal feel. Epic product. Moving inwards, we've got Total Chaos's long travel kit. So that's a 2.5 inch over kit. So basically it's adding 2.5 inches of width to both sides of the truck. So you end up 5 inches wider. The coil we have in there is a 700-pound coil. And as far as like how the truck is driving with the front bumper and the weight of the camper, roof rack, wood box, sliders, it is a little soft for sure. We're going to be adding some preload to this truck, both from leveling out the ride, but also we want it to be a little bit stiffer. So we firmed everything up before we hit the trail yesterday. Made a massive difference. There is a little bit of body roll, but we do have the factory sway bars still on there. But in terms of performance, I mean, this truck is, you know, we didn't build a race truck for the customer. And I think a lot of people, when they think long travel, they think having to go to the desert and thrash on your vehicle. Keep in mind here, you've got a big camper on the back, wood box up top, pretty heavy truck, pretty top heavy. And we just increased the width of the tires by 5 inches, right? We've added a lot of stability to that. So you get, we'll call it just, it's safer, right? The truck's a little bit wider. Additionally, the longer shock that we're able to put in there, because we've got an extra 2.5 inches of width, is just more control for any sort of off-road driving. But we weren't, you know, we did this trail yesterday that I would say most trucks are going to get up to the top in what, an hour, hour and a half? And we did it almost 90% of the way up there in what, 30 minutes? So it's just, there's, you know, you don't have to be jumping the truck in order to appreciate long travel. It drives better every day on road. It drives better off road. And, you know, I tell people rocks this size on a trail, like you do these trails where like they're softball sized rocks and it's kind of miserable. You air down, you slow down, and you're kind of just beating yourself up and beating the vehicle up for long periods of time. In my truck with the long travel kit and this truck yesterday, you kind of just put the pedal down and you blast through it. We weren't even aired down yesterday. And I guess part of the thing behind that is like, you know, I've talked to Jeep owners before who have solid axles. They feel the fatigue of driving, I feel like, a lot more than IFS owners. And then when you have a long travel truck and you're spending long days on the trail and you're spending long days on the highway, you're going to appreciate getting to camp with feeling a little bit better. A friend of ours is in Iceland right now and she's on some horrible roads. And when we talk, she jokes about her kidneys being sore. Like, that doesn't happen when you have this kind of setup. So long travel kit, not necessarily to jump the truck, not necessarily to win the Baja 500, but to get to camp and be super comfortable and blast through that stuff, have something that's more durable. Epic option. So, you know, inside, we'll show you guys, we did the standard mirror that we typically do. That is a full mirror replacement, looks very factory, and we install a camera in the back. That allows you to have a rear view mirror on the highway because now you have a camper blocking it, so your rear view mirror no longer works. And it also gives you, I would say, an adequate backup camera. It's not going to be as good as the factory, but it's going to allow you to make sure that, you know, when you're backing out of a spot in a parking lot, there's nobody walking behind you. Depth perception is probably the worst part about that. It's a little off. It isn't represented as accurately as I would love it to be. You know, it's that objects in mirror are closer than they appear type thing. That is exactly how that works. Up top, we already had a Prinzy rack on this vehicle when it came in, but last second we added the Alu-Cab wood box. This customer is expecting a child, so they're going to start doing a lot of family trips, and having that extra storage up there will allow them to just be able to bring all that stuff that I know new families like to bring. Alu-Cab table, so this right here, I'm not going to pull it down for you guys. This is an Alu-Cab camping table. It's 14 pounds. It slides out, slides in. Very, very, very rarely does it rattle. Yesterday there was only one point where I got it to rattle, and like I said, I was beating the truck up pretty good. In back, so suspension for this truck, this is the first Tundra that we've built that's long travel, and I wanted to do it right. Originally, the shocks that we ordered from Total Chaos, we learned, and Total Chaos honestly learned, that it is not for a vehicle with any sort of lift. It's kind of ironic, but it was a 3.0 triple bypass performance kit, and it was way too short. We noticed right away once we pulled it, it came in with Icon suspension. We laid the shock out and it was about 3 inches shorter. And what we found is that we couldn't run the Icon leaf pack that we had with that shock. It's just too short. So called around, talked to a few buddies that build a lot of these trucks, and they also didn't have great answers. So ultimately what we did was we ended up ordering a custom leaf pack from Alcan, and we spec'd it for the weight of the truck with a little bit of extra weight for when we add water and gear. And so the truck sitting really nice in back, has some good rake. And even yesterday with it being unloaded, we probably have, from a leaf spring standpoint, an extra 500 to 600 pounds of capacity remaining in that pack. It still drove really nice, which is very, very cool. Then we did a custom length 2.5 inch finned resi with adjuster that we got from King directly, and asked them to do just valving for a little bit of a heavier vehicle over stock Tundra. So we got that taken care of. Then we also have Total Chaos's hydro bump back there. So all in all, rear's dialed really nicely. Did feel a little stiff yesterday, but that's to be expected with no weight in here from water, half of a fuel tank, and then all the gear from camping. So really happy with the way that performed. I'm gonna pop open the sides for you guys, and we'll start showing you guys a little bit kind of what's going on. Let's start with the back though real quick, Noah, before I do that. So I want to point out, you guys can see the dust that's here. This is like that super fine powder. And the trail was covered in that yesterday. Noah's feet looked like he just walked to Mordor. But right now we have, we've talked to you guys before about our advanced seal. So our advanced seal, basically what we're doing is we're taking the camper and we're gluing it to the truck using the same sealant that's used to assemble the camper. And so like in this area right here, you can see this is where we've added it. And this area right here is where Alu-Cab's using it. And so we've done that with the bed, and I'll pop this open for you guys. And no, I'm gonna have you stand over here for a second. And let's talk about tire real quick. So Alu-Cab tire carrier, 37-inch tire. It fits, it's tight. I have all the confidence in the world on that rear door. I ran that 35-inch tire on my truck, and I absolutely thrashed that truck, jumped it, broke my back window, like beat the crap out of it for 2 years. And the hinges remain perfectly fine. So lots of confidence in it. However, you guys can see that it does rub against the bar. So when I open this, it takes a little bit more force. And that's kind of a sacrifice you have to make when running that 37-inch tire. The only other option really would be to space it out further away from the door, which is going to put more strain on the door itself. So avoiding that. Now, the one spot that I will show you guys some dust is right here. And that's because you can see there's a clean line right here, and there's a clean line up top, but the side has a little bit of dust. We don't have the door seal on it right now. We're actually replacing the one that we had there. We worked on this truck for a long time, slid things in and out, and we just ended up damaging the seal over time. So that arrives today, but where the seal made contact, you can see it did a good job. But then as far as inside the truck, we'll get you guys a little bit of a B-roll. It's pretty dang spotless in here. And that's the goal, right? When we seal these beds, we want it to be as completely dust-free as possible. And what I typically tell folks is you are going to see more dust from climbing in and out than actually from driving on a trail. And this is the stuff that's really, that's the worst stuff, right? I talked about buddies on the East Coast that deal with water and rain and mud. They don't have this, and so they don't always understand the advanced seal thing, but we've kind of standardized that as far as Alu-Cab installers go. And so a lot of other installers are doing it now as well. You guys have seen plenty of camper videos from us before, so I'm gonna do kind of a quick run through. GP Factor molly plate on the rear door, great place to add first aid kits, cooking accessories. GP Factor drop down table, stainless steel food grade tabletop with a bamboo cutting board. This is the place that you start cooking a lot of meals. One thing I do want to point out though, if you guys look, is the angle of the door, right? 37-inch tire, this is a sacrifice you have to make, which is your door is no longer at 90. So still plenty of room to go into the drawer, grab my stuff. But when someone climbs in and out, which I pretty much do anyways, you want to put the table away and you can easily climb in and out. So goose gear, we've got drawer set up on this side, really large bottom drawer, nice and tall. You'll be able to fit, you know, almost any object in there within reason. Top one is a little bit smaller. Over here on this side, we have the electrical setup, and that just houses our battery. So we've got a 125 amp hour anti-gravity battery that has a Bluetooth shunt, which can allow you to monitor the battery life via your phone on Bluetooth. It also shows the input from solar and whatnot. Very cool. We have a Victron battery monitor on the electrical board, and we also have a Blue Sea switch panel to operate the lights. So, 13-gallon water tank from Alu-Cab, water tank canvas bags, screen kits all around, and just overall dialed cabin. This has now been changed to the mod cap. Slightly different. It's going to be one big solid window now. And then we've got Alu-Cab's 270 awning up there. We have GP Factor's Dickinson fireplace kit. As far as output of that goes, because that's a pretty common question, in the cabin, it is a little bit of a bigger space, but 5.5 foot bed, you're still making things extremely warm. The hack that I mentioned in another video, if you're camping in extreme cold, bring a buddy heater, crank that thing, get the cabin really hot, and that fireplace will maintain that heat all night. Don't leave that buddy heater running. Dickinson fireplace, extremely safe. Buddy heater, not very safe from a carbon monoxide standpoint. So, if you guys want to see more Alu-Cab camper videos, that's the majority of what we do. There's a lot more detail, and we're actually going to be coming out with a new walk around of the mod cap on my Tacoma that we've done. And then as soon as we have a full-size mod cap build in the shop, we'll go ahead and we'll do a walk around of that for you guys as well. So wrapping it up, I guess on the rear end here, you guys can see CBI bumper. This was already on the truck prior, and some Baja Designs lights. And then you can see up top for the Alu-Cab logo, we have that camera. So if you guys have any questions, want us to build a vehicle like this for you, please reach out. Again, I'm Daniel, Noah's behind the camera. You can call our shop and we'll walk you through this plan your guys build with you. If you're looking for us just to do suspension, we're able to just do the Total Chaos stuff. We can do the same custom setup for the rear leaf springs and the custom Kings we ordered. And we can build you guys an epic truck. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you out on the trails.